Good morning, and today we are going to be taking some notes on something called prime and composite. So join with me in giving our notes a title. We're going to call this prime and composite numbers. Alright, so these are new vocabulary words to 5th grade. If you heard them in 4th grade, you might have heard them at the end of 4th grade, but they are new to 5th grade, and you are expected to know what they are. So let's go ahead and record our definition. So let's start with the word prime. So a prime number is a number that only has two factors. The number 1 and itself. Alright, so that's what a prime number is. A prime number is a number that only has two factors, 1 and itself. So the great thing is we've been working on this factor book for a few weeks now, and we have already been looking at some numbers that are considered prime. So I want you to take your prime or your factor book out, and I want us to kind of go through what some numbers might be that would be considered prime. So when I look at the number 10 and I see that I have several factors here, I would not want to call the number 10 prime. So I'm going to move on. When I look at the number 11, I see that there are two factor pairs for 11. Or two factors for the number 11, not pairs, two factors. That would be the number 1 and the number 11. Those are the only ways to make the number 11. So back to my notes, I'm going to write an example of what a prime number would be, and a prime number would be an example of the number 11, because the factors for 11 are 1 and 11. Let's look and see if there are any other numbers that might be considered prime. So, as I continue, I can look and see that we have, first of all, we have the number 12. We know 12 is not going to be a prime number because it has lots of factors. We've already been looking at that when we've been trying to simplify. When I look at the number 13, again, I see the number 1 and 13. It only has two factors. So the number 13 would be another example. Now, some boys and girls think that it's all odd numbers. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look in my factor book. I know 14 has several factors. It has 1, 2, 7, and 14. But I'm going to look over at the number 15. Now it is also odd, but does it have one set of factors? No, it does not. It has 1, 3, 5, and 15. So when we think about the number prime, we want to make sure that we're not thinking about all odd numbers. It's only special numbers that have two factors, 1 and itself. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a list of numbers that go up to the number 50 that would be considered prime. This would be a quick reference list. So the number 2 is the only number that is even that is considered prime, because the only factors for the number 2 are 1 and itself. The number 3, the only way to make 3 is 1, and 3. Now number 4 is even, and there are a couple of factors for the number 4, 1, 2, and 4. The number 5 is your only multiple of 5 that is considered prime, because the only way to make 5 is 1 and 5. We have the number 7. The only way to make 7 is 1 and 7. And then of course we have the number 11, which we just modeled. We have the number 13. We have the number 17. The number 19. The number 23. And the number 29. Those are the only two that are in the 20s. We have two that are in the 30s. We have the number 31. And we have the number 37. And then we have 3 in the 40s. So those numbers are 41, 43, and 47. All right, so that gets us all the way up to 50. Now there are more. There are more past the number 50, but those are the ones that I want you to put in your notes for now. We can add some more later if we need to. Let's talk about what is a composite number, because a lot of times boys and girls get the word composite number and prime number. They get them confused. They get the definition confused with each other. So just so you know, a composite number is a number that has more than 2 factors. So a composite number is a number that has more than 2 factors. And so if we go back and we think about composite numbers, that would basically be all of the other numbers that we're not going to identify as prime in our factor book. So that would be, some examples would include all even numbers after the number 2. So all evens after number 2, because number 2 is the only prime number that is even. That would be all multiples of 5 after the number 5. And that would be odd numbers that only have odd numbers that have more than 2 factors. So odd numbers with more than 2 factors. So that's basically most of our numbers. Most of our numbers are going to be considered composite numbers. So if you wanted to write a quick reference down, that might be the number 4. That might be the number 6. Definitely the number 24. The number 49. The number 51. The number 63, and so forth. These numbers here are all composite numbers because they have more than 2 factors. So the last thing I want you to write down in your notes is the number 1. The number 1 is neither It is neither because the number 1 is the only way to make the number 1 is 1 times 1. And that gives you the number 1. And so if we think about the number 1, trying to classify it as a prime number, it would need to have 2 factors. Well, 1 times 1 is the same number, so it cannot be a prime number. And if we think about trying to classify the number 1 as a composite number, well, again, the only way to make the number 1 is 1 times 1. So the number 1 is neither, and we consider it special. But we already know that the number 1 is special because of our wonderful 1. So the number 1 is a special number when it comes to math.